So I walked into Paul's office one day. I said, Paul, how do I be you? I don't want to do this. I don't want to sell cars forever. I want to do what you do. Because you're 20 years old, bro. I don't know how you need to put your time in. So then I went to the general manager, Mark. I said, Mark, I want to be a finance manager. He said, you got another 5, maybe 10 years before you have this opportunity. And after I learned and I felt I had a baseline, I went back to my GM and he said, hey man, you don't have a shot here. But right down the road, there was a dealership, Auto Centers Nissan, that was up and coming, selling more cars than anybody in our community. And I had a buddy over there that said, hey, Adam, I think if you come over here and prove your worth, you could get an opportunity. So I went over there and I met with the owner. I said, hey, listen, I'm selling now. I'm making good money and I like what I do. I'm selling Toyotas, right? Like I'm in the right place, but I don't have an opportunity for F&I, and that's what I truly want. And he told me, he goes, if you lead my board for 6 months, you're going to get an F&I position. So I quit my job that was a safe existence, nice new demo with gas, living the dream. I left that for a destination unknown, and I went to the Nissan store, and I led the board for the first 5 months. And this is a story for my younger generation, for the youth out there. I stayed out a little too late. It was a Friday night. In the sales meeting, I showed up late. And my owner said, get it the hell out. He says, no, as a matter of fact, meet me in my office. And he walks in, he looks at me in the eye, he says, listen, today was the day I was promoting you to F&I manager. But today is the day I'm telling you to get the hell out of my dealership. Go home until you grow up. If you want to be an F&I manager and you want to control money, you want to control my money, you want to help customers at a higher level, you got to grow the hell up. Because I'm going to put you on probation for 90 days. And after 90 days, I'll reconsider. So I got my job back. The next Saturday, God works in mysterious ways. The next Saturday, one of our F&I managers was on vacation. The other F&I manager was kind of a rogue employee, pretty wild. He wasn't happy about something. I don't remember what that something was, but I remember sitting in front of my GM/owner, and I'm working a car deal. And back then we had these Nextels, like you would beep. These cell phones were big, heavy cell phones, and you could actually page people. He came into the office and he threw his Nextel at the owner, and the owner ducked it, and he says, I quit. And he flipped him the bird and left. And so then I looked at my GM/owner. I said, John, I know I'm on probation, but Tim's on vacation. Let's do this. So I got my job as an F&I manager at that point. I was 22 years old at the time. And I got my opportunity at age 22. And I took that as my career. I built my life around being an F&I manager. Not an F&I manager, actually an F&I professional. That was my breakthrough right then. It was a moment of opportunity, being in the right place at the right time, not going rogue and quitting, saying, oh my God, I got 90 days probation. I'm going to go work somewhere else. No, I stayed in the pocket. The next week later, I had the opportunity. Thank you for the Nextel. Yeah, I got that job. There was one moment that I'll ever forget to this day that got me to here. It was a Tuesday night. It was a Tuesday night in 2017 in the month of May. I promised my firstborn, Anna, that I would take her to the park. And it was a Tuesday night, so we were supposed to get off at 6. And a client showed up, potential client. It wouldn't become a client, showed up right before close. They drove 3 or 4 cars. My sales manager loved to stay late. And I got home at 8:30. 8:30, 2.5 hours after closing, that customer didn't buy a car. And I walked in and I climbed up into my baby girl Annalise top bunk. I laid next to her. She's sitting like this. And I said, what's on? I go, what's wrong? She goes, we were supposed to go to the park. And I said, I know. Daddy had to work late. And she compared me. I'll never forget this to this day. She compared me to one of the neighbors' dads. She said, well, Eric is always home, can go to the park with his daughters. He's home in the afternoon. And I said, well, he's a school teacher, honey. Daddy's not a school teacher. I found myself in the moment defending my position when all my daughter wanted was me. I walked out into my garage. I called my best friend, one of my best friends to this day, my mentor, Craig Schmitz, who owns the dealership. I said, Craig, I go, bro, I think this is kind of like the beginning of the end for me. And I planted that seed. I left with no plan. Zero. I left. And 3 weeks after I left, one of my mentors, Johnny Garlic, who was my F&I provider my entire career as an F&I manager, this incredible man, Johnny Garlic, was my F&I provider. He owns Hart Dealer Financial Services. So he brought me into his agency as an employee, and I worked for Johnny Garlic from July of 2017 until I started my company in 2019. Without Johnny Garlic, I wouldn't be who I am today. And the reason I left Johnny was because I'm an entrepreneur at heart. And Johnny owned that company and I didn't own that company. I had big visions. I had visions of scale. I wanted to build a behemoth of a company. Yeah, so when I left retail, there was an individual that believed in me more than anybody, and his name was Steve Oldenburger. Steve Oldenburger was my smart payment plan rep when I was in retail. And when I left Johnny Garlic, he was one of the only people that believed in me. And I'll never forget, we were coming home from NADA San Francisco 2019. I just got awarded Automotive News 40 Under 40, and Steve was the only one there for me. And we were coming home on a Southwest flight, and I'll never forget, we were on the back of the plane, like the very back of the plane, on the right side of the plane. We might have been the last row, the second to last row, like we were at the end of the plane. And we had these napkins. Like everybody talks about building companies on napkins. We actually did not. There were free napkins. We started putting names and ideas of what our company could look like. What markets are we going to serve? What is our value proposition? What separates us from the competitors? That 3.5-hour flight was the birth to Ascent Dealer Services. And we started our company the next day. We came out the gate with a couple decent accounts. And then something unfortunate happened. Steve ended up passing away. Steve passed away 2 months into our company. And that was something that I wasn't ready for, especially the way he passed. Like I was in a scenario where I was all in on Steve. Like I hedged all my bets on Steve and what he believed in me. And honestly, like I was lost. And it was actually brilliant what happened, because when Steve passed, one of my best friends, Paul, he ended up exiting. So he was one of the biggest, most high-powered general managers in St. Louis. And the dealer principal was a little bit, I'm not going to say his name, but he was a little bit off the rocker a little bit. He was off the reservation. So him and Paul could not see eye to eye. And Paul left. And Paul mentored me in F&I as a finance manager 10 years previous. So I sat down with Paul. I said, hey, man, Steve's not here and I need somebody. He jumped in. Sorry, guys. He jumped in, and our first big deal was in Michigan. And Paul was the catalyst behind that. He was there. And we put that deal together. And then honestly, that was the thing that took us to the next level right there. Sorry, guys. Now I'm getting emotional. Sometimes I forget. Sometimes I forget, like, my story. Steve passing was the most difficult thing in my life, but it honestly led to the most beautiful thing in my life. Like we took a sit, like in a very short period of time. Like year one was tough. Like Paul came in and we had to fake it till we made it. And then we signed a handful of accounts. And then we started building relevance. And then the dominoes started falling. And then we started hiring the right people. And we started scaling. And now today, fast forward, I mean, we're a pretty big company. We're a big company now. And to look back, like, how the hell did we get here? And that was part of it.